I hope you got your beauty sleep, because I'm throwing a party. And you're invited. Hey yo, what up? It's Billy Quick, welcome back. Today, we're playing with one of my favorite cards in all of Altered, and that's Lyra Festival. This card literally says, you win the game on it. And draw a card, two of the best things you can do in a card game. How can you not want to play this card? Well, since this card says you win the game, surely it has to be hard to do, right? All we need to do is control 3 different characters with 3 different statuses. That's fleeting, anchored, and asleep. But before we get into how we're going to do that, let's talk about who the helm of our deck is. We're playing Arjun and Spike. Arjun reads you can exhaust him and discard a card from your reserve to give a character you control anchored. And this is good for 2 reasons in a Lyra Festival deck. Arjun wants you to fill up his reserve. And in Altered, when you play a character from reserve, they already gain fleeting. And that's one of the statuses that we need. In addition to that, Arjun can give one of your characters anchored at the low cost of just discarding 1 card from your reserve. So that's 2 statuses of the 3 that we need to win the game. But let's talk about how we're going to do this. So here are some more of my favorite cards in the deck. These are all about filling up your reserve so you can have fodder to discard, and also just give you more gas to look for your Lyra Festival or other characters you might need. These low mana cost cards are so valuable in Altered, because you don't have to expose your characters right away. When we're trying to rely on our characters to have 3 different statuses and win us the game, we want to play these out first to make sure our opponent does whatever they need to do before we do ours. Frozen Delivery is one of my favorite cards, just in terms of flavor and the effect. Granted, I think the common version is better than the rare, but in Muno, we'll work with what we've got. Frozen Delivery is great because it puts itself into reserve after you play it, it doesn't have fleeting, and also it puts another card into your reserve that you can discard right away. It's exhausted anyway. Floral Tint's a great card in Arjun in general because it gives you fodder to discard to activate Arjun's ability, and it also protects your anchored characters that Arjun anchors. We've got a couple more cards that give us some resupplies though, let's check them out. So the first one's Harvest. I've seen a lot of people play the rare copy of Harvest, but personally I prefer the common just because it's 1 mana on the front end, or when you play it from hand. These resupply effects are really good at just getting deeper in your deck if you need to find a Lyra Festival or any character to put something to sleep or give a status effect you wouldn't otherwise have. Next card here is Frozen Reprocessor, which is faction shifted out of Axiom, and it just gives us more resources to play with. I also think this card is just great in Arjun in general, although the big downside is you usually have to take your second turn off of the game to play this card, and likely lose both expeditions. But having that 3rd card in reserve can make all the difference. And then on to our last MVP for resupplies. That's Aloe Vera. This guy's a great anchor target in the deck, and also gives you more fodder to discard to Arjun's ability. So now that we've talked about filling up a reserve with characters that we can play to then gain fleeting, which is one of the status effects we need, and also giving our reserve resources to discard to give our characters anchored, well, how are we going to put our characters to sleep? I thought you'd never ask. So here are some great options for putting our characters to sleep. Snoozer Shroom is great in this deck because when we're filling up our reserve, we don't actually have to spend mana to put something to sleep. We can just discard it from our reserve with its support ability. Then we've got Kodama, who has a great stat line. 2 mana from hand, 2 mana from reserve, 3/3/3. That just comes into play asleep. It's great at stalling if you need to draw a Lyra Festival, or giving you that asleep status for just 2 mana. As for more ways to put things to sleep, let's talk about some of the uniques in this deck. So all 3 of my uniques put things to sleep. Granted, I don't think all of these uniques are great, but this is what I'm working with. I really like the Esmeralda because you're already putting a lot of things in your reserve, so being able to discard them and just dig a little deeper with more resupplies is great. And now this Mowgli has a conditional effect to put something to sleep. You have to control a landmark, but oftentimes we want to control a Lyra Festival or something like the Frozen Reprocessor that I mentioned earlier. And this Keylon Elemental is actually really interesting. This one can put things into reserve from your hand, so you can activate support abilities sneakily on the last turn you want to combo off with that Lyra Festival. Alright, and that about does it for the deck tech. If you want to pause and take a look at the entire list, here it is. Let me stop putting you to sleep, and let's get this party started. Up against Ramon from Brazil, a Tasia matchup. The Muna Mirror match. The best cards in our hand are probably this Kodama and maybe a Frozen Delivery or a Harvest. Frozen Delivery sets us up best for the following turn, and we probably don't need both, so let's get rid of one of those. Our uniques aren't great here. Mowgli unique paired with one of these 1-drops is going to overload our reserve, as both of these put 2 cards in our reserve, and this card would go to reserve at the end of the turn, overloading it. This Keylon Elemental does a similar effect, granted we don't get to play a 1-drop with it, but we can fill up our reserve with it. It could be worth putting one of these Frozen Deliveries into reserve. So I think these are our 3 worst cards in our hand. Let's go ahead and put these back. Since our opponent is the first player, we can always just react to what they do. Our opponent leads with a Sneezer Shroom on the hero side. Sorry, I have a cat now. Something we could do here is play Frozen Delivery and anchor our Kodama. Anchor it and put it to sleep. That would set us up well for stalling. So let's plan on doing that. Now, seeing our aloe vera, I want to play that next turn. So let's just play our Kodama and not anchor it. Now this is interesting. I don't really know if I should put my unique back because it doesn't really fit into my curve this turn. I'm likely to play a Floral Tent or this Frozen Delivery and just play out this aloe vera so I can start my resource train here. And just try and stall, put a lot of pressure on this left side most likely. So we're probably putting this unique back. There could be an argument there to put back this Inari because it doesn't actually put anything to sleep and it's just card advantage. Inari does just draw a card at noon. So you do have to anchor it to get its effect, or put it to sleep. But let's continue with our plan of just playing this Frozen Delivery and anchoring this aloe vera. I would absolutely love to see a Frozen Reprocessor here soon. A Coniferal Cone Man. That's one you don't see very often. So my opponent has 666 worth of stats on that side. And funnily enough, I can actually compete if I play my Inari and anchor it and end up winning that side. That might be something we're going to do here. Let's go ahead and discard this Floral Tent, because I can't play it anyway, and play this Inari on this side. All we need to do is stall until we find Lyra Festival. So no advances is good for us. I don't know how important the spindle is going to be in this matchup, because Muna doesn't often play that many targeted character removal cards, so I'm probably going to put this away. Well, I draw a second one anyway. Well, there's my third spindle, and my opponent is absolutely blasting off on this right side. So there's no shot I'll be able to compete on this left side, I should say, on this hero side. So I might as well just pivot to the right side. There is some consideration to anchor my character by discarding Kodama. It does allow me to draw more cards, which is pretty good, but I think we'll just start off with a Floral Tent and plan to discard something to activate Arjun's ability. If my opponent doesn't play anything on the companion side or pressure this side at all, it is possible I just play a Frozen Reprocessor and get the engine going. They do play a Snoozer Shroom on this right side, which I can beat with just an aloe vera. So let's just plan to do that and stall, because we really don't want to be 2-0'd here. But we also have to decide if we want to anchor it with Arjun ability or a Kodama support ability. They're both the same at the end of the day. Alright, so we anchor our aloe vera. We could also anchor our Inari, which isn't the worst thing in the world. We get to draw another card and resupply. So it is worth considering. Our opponent's also going to have no pressure on this side, but they might play the Coniferal Cone Man again. I think I'm just going to keep my resources for now. Oh, I guess I forgot that this Floral Tent's going to be going to the reserve, so I should have activated my Kodama to keep my Inari around. This was a blunder. Don't think I'll ever be playing a second Frozen Reprocessor, so this mana choice is pretty easy. We've not seen a Lyra Festival yet. I'm tempted to just play out my Inari and then plan to anchor it with my Kodama, and then maybe play an aloe vera as well to just try and win one of these sides. Again, we just need to stall as long as we can. Our opponent looking like they want to try and win both sides this turn. So it is possible that I could just play this Frozen Reprocessor. Although I do think making my Inari anchored is better than this Frozen Reprocessor. So let's go ahead and use the support ability on the Inari to draw extra cards on this following turn. Or I guess we could do both. Our opponent plays out this Daughter of Yggdrasil, unsurprisingly winning both lanes. Now, if we find a Lyra Festival on this next turn, and maybe a Muna Caregiver, we might be able to win the game. We did find a Muna Caregiver, And we're likely putting away one of these third spindles that we have here. Let's see what we draw off of this Inari. No sign of Lyra Festival yet, so we really need to stall this turn. It's likely here we'll want to beauty sleep something so that we can stall as long as possible. So let's just play out our aloe vera on this left side and just try and anchor it. We do have the other option here of just letting them get away with this, and we could play Inari on our companion side and just trade 1 for 1. That is likely our better option. And since we're already losing this hero side, we could just activate our Snoozer Shroom to put our Inari to sleep and draw more resources. So let's just go ahead and do that. Our opponent may be catching on that we're looking for Lyra Festival here, because we've not made many advances. Now we do find a Lyra Festival and our third Frozen Reprocessor, so let's go ahead and put away this Frozen Reprocessor and try to win the game this turn. There may have been a reason to play this Muna Caregiver last turn with our 1 extra mana, as we would have had a free way to anchor one of our characters. But we're drawing an extra card and we've got 2 resupplies on the way. So Anchored will be covered by Arjun's ability, and we should be able to take this one home. So we get to draw a card and do 2 resupplies. We've exposed our Lyra Festival, so they're on to us. I don't want to play the Lyra Festival first. I kind of want to play that as my last card in case my opponent has a Lost in the Woods or some other removal spell for it. So in that case, let's plan to just play out this Inari and anchor it by discarding this Lyra Festival from our reserve. A great thing here is that we have backup Anchor with our Muna Caregiver, unless they decide to sabotage. We've got Fleeting and Anchored on lock here. We also have 2 beauty spells to put things to sleep, just in case they have removal or interaction against us. They decide to play out the Spindle Harvesters just to see what we do, I assume, and I think we might just do the same by putting something to sleep here on our side. If they remove that target, then we have another Beauty Sleep and a Lyra Festival to follow up with. Alright, I'm realizing now that if they do remove one of these, we could be in big trouble. So let's just play our Lyra Festival and see if they have the removal. We should be able to stall with a Beauty Sleep if they do have a removal spell. Our opponent plays their own Inari, and I think we're in the clear. I don't think there's any combination of cards I could play here that would change anything. I could anchor this, I could put this one to sleep with a Beauty Sleep and using the Muna Caregiver ability, but I don't think it matters. So let's just hit pass and see if we win the game. Awesome, and that's it. This is a game I was recording earlier, but sadly had some technical difficulties, had some flickering screens. I don't really know what happened, but I want to show you the replay, so let's go over it. We've got a Muna mirror match here, Teja versus us on Arjun. And now, our opening 6 is interesting. I think there's a solid argument to keep most of the cards in this hand. The Esmeralda I decided not to keep in this hand because paired with our other 1-mana spells like the Frozen Delivery that resupplies or the Floral Tent that also resupplies, we would overload our reserve. I think one of the best cards in the deck is Floral Tent, so I'm keeping that, along with Aloe Vera for something to play on turn 1 and Frozen Reprocessor to get our engine started on turn 2. Our opponent leads with a Spindle Harvesters common. Granted, this card isn't very scary, but they do still have 2 mana left over for another play. We decide to play our Aloe Vera on the hero side, and just see what they follow up with. Thankfully, they follow up with a Snoozer Shroom, also on the side with their Spindle Harvesters, but they do have 2 anchored characters sticking around for the following turn, putting a lot of pressure on that companion side. Both players pass, and we move on to day 2. After day 1, we traded 1 for 1 on our expeditions, and now I've got a pretty easy choice, I think. I'm going to mana one of these 2 Floral Tents Typically, you don't need both, but like I said, it is one of the best cards in the deck, so I could see an argument for keeping it. Granted, our plan for this turn is to play this Frozen Reprocessor, so let's just do that. The Reprocessor shows us a Beauty Sleep in our reserve. That's great to have access to when we have our Lyra Festival. Not surprising, we're going to end up losing both expeditions on this second day, but our engine is online. Our opponent's really putting the pressure on with this meditation training, now having 2 more characters anchored for the following day. This is a much harder mana decision to make, because we need Lyra Festival and characters to execute our game plan, so I ended up putting Beauty Sleep back here, because we already have one in our reserve. At noon, our Frozen Reprocessor triggered, giving us our 3rd Floral Tint in our reserve. Exhausted, that is, so we won't be able to play it this turn. To stem the bleeding a little bit, let's just play this Aloe Vera anchored using Arjun's ability to discard one of the cards in our reserve, and just try to stall until we can play this Lyra Festival and execute our game plan. Our opponent plays a Sneezer Shroom on their companion side, anchored from their ability and boosted from Tasia's ability. Just to get a little bit of information on what else our opponent is planning to do this turn, let's just play out that Floral Tint on our hero side, and then plan to play our Aloe Vera anchored like I mentioned. We find a Spindle off of our resupply from our Floral Tint. Our opponent plays the meditation training that they had in reserve to anchor one of their characters, the Sneezer Shroom on the hero side, and so let's just stick to our game plan of anchoring this Aloe Vera and trying to stem the bleeding. So we activate Arjun and discard that Spindle, because I don't think we'll be needing it in this game. We end up trading 1 for 1, and I'm feeling okay about our position here. And with our Frozen Reprocessor, we don't actually have to discard anything to our reserve with 3 cards in it, because one of our Floral Tints was exhausted. As a reminder, Frozen Reprocessor says if you have 3 cards in your reserve and one of them is exhausted, you can keep them all. This is a pretty easy mana decision. I don't think we'll be needing a second Frozen Reprocessor, so let's go ahead and put that away. This turn's really exciting, because we have a resupply from both our Aloe Vera and Frozen Reprocessor here. A lot of resources that we get to look at. I'm thinking this is a great turn to set up for Lyra Festival to win on the following turn. So we need to work Lyra Festival into our plan at least somewhere. So let's just start out with a Floral Tint, and maybe plan to activate one of our Muna caregivers to re-anchor our Aloe Vera, and just try to stall out again. The resupply from the Floral Tint from our reserve just shows us another Aloe Vera, and our opponent plays a Spindle Harvesters from their reserve, anchored, fleeting with a boost. We get to see a little bit more about what our opponent has in mind if we just play another one of these Floral Tints from our reserve, and then follow up lastly with a Lyra Festival to set up for the following turn. We see another Frozen Reprocessor, that's our 3rd one. Likely won't be keeping that in our reserve this evening. Our opponent's going really heavy on the anchor mechanic here, and we're expecting to see all 3 of their characters anchored for the following day, keeping the pressure up. Let's stick to the game plan and just slam a Lyra Festival, try to win the following turn. Our opponent goes all in on this plant strategy, and the last card in their hand is a Yongsu Verdant Weaver. This is giving itself 2 boosts for controlling 2 or more plants. Massive pressure on this left side. Our opponent's going to make a double advance here, and we have 1 turn left to win the game. Like I mentioned earlier, we won't be needing this 3rd Frozen Reprocessor, so let's just get rid of that and go into our final day. Here we draw a 3rd copy of Inari. We won't be needing that, so let's go ahead and mana that. Again, we have 2 resupplies from our anchored Aloe Vera and our Frozen Reprocessor, so let's see what we can pull off this turn. It was looking pretty grim, but thankfully we found a Sneezer Shroom in our reserve, not exhausted, meaning we can put something to sleep this turn for free that we control. That's going to give us a much greater chance to be able to execute this turn. Our opponent leads with a Sneezer Shroom on the companion side, and now we have a lot of options here. We could activate Arjun and discard a card from our reserve and give a character we control anchored, We'd then have Fleeting and Anchored as two of the statuses we need to win the game with our Lyra Festival. So we go ahead and activate Arjun, discard that Spindle, and let's play this Aloe Vera out of our reserve. In hindsight, looking back at this replay, something else I should have done was activate my Muna Caregiver support ability before playing the Aloe Vera to give this Aloe Vera on my hero side Anchored. The reason you would want to do that is if my opponent's last card was something that could answer one of my characters, this Floral Tint gives it protection. Rather than going away, it would just lose Anchored. Our opponent, seemingly making a desperation play, just plays a boosted character, and we're relying on this last card in their hand to not be a removal spell. The worst case scenario would be a Lost in the Woods. So we play out our Muna Caregiver with the intent to put it to sleep with our Snoozer Shroom support ability, or just paying 3 mana for a Beauty Sleep from our reserve. And let's just see what this last card from our opponent is. Our opponent's last card is Daughter of Yggdrasil, and that's a wrap, folks. Thanks for the extra card. We put our guy to sleep, and Lyra Festival wins us the game. Thanks for watching, folks, and I'll see you in the next one.